Good evening, ma'am. I am J.R. Saranyas, third year BS Clj3 from the Clj3. And this video is to compliance of the subject Clj3, Criminal Law Book 1. So today I'm going to discuss the three main characteristics of the Philippine criminal law. So the first one is the generality. So it means that the Philippine criminal law are binding on all persons who live or sojourn in Philippines. Whoever you are, whatever be your creed, sex, religion, nationality, as long as you reside in the Philippine territory, the penal law under the Philippines shall apply on you. Next, there are three exemptions for the general characteristics. First is the Treaty of Stipulations. So these are the international agreement entered into by the Philippines, which requires legislative concurrence after its executive ratifications. So one of the this includes acts, declarations, covenants, or conventions. So one of the example, this is the VFA or the Visiting Force Agreement of the Philippines and US. Next exemptions is the law of preferential application. So there are three examples. First is the any members of the Congress shall not be held liable for libel or slander in any speech in the Congress or in any committee, and they are not held, questioned, or liable in any other places. Next is the ambassadors are exempt from arrest and imprisonment, and also their property is exempt to be from seizure. Lastly is the worship rule. So this is likely observed in the Philippines. The worship of another country dock in the Philippines, so it represents as the extension territory of its respective country. Next exemption is the principle of public international law. So generally accepted principle of public international law are refer to the norms of general customary international law binding all persons in state, such as renunciation of war, which used as instrument for national policy, the principles of sovereign immunity, and among others. So there are specific persons who are exempt in the Philippine criminal law. So these persons are the sovereigns, head of state, ambassadors, minister, plenipotentiary, minister residence, and charge the affairs. So the next characteristic of criminal law is territoriality. So in general rule, penal law of the country have force and effect only within its territory. So it cannot penalize outside the same. And there are exemptions for the territorial characteristics. So the first is when the offender commits an offense in the Philippine ship or airship. Next is when the offender shall forge or counterfeit any coins or currency note of the Philippines, and the obligations and securities issued by the Philippine government. Third, when the act is liable or connected to the introduction of the Philippine and obligations of securities mentioned in number 2. Next is when the offender is a public officer or employee abroad she commit an offense during the exercise of his function. So lastly is when the offender uh, offend the national securities and law of nations. So the last characteristic Philippine criminal law is the prospectivity. So in general rule, so penal law shall be punish an act committed after its effectivity. It cannot penalize an act that was not punishable at the time of its commission. So the exceptions for prospective character is when the new law is favorable to the accused, and when the offender is a habitual criminal, the new law provides no application or retroactive effect to its pending actions or cases. So that's all, ma'am. Thank you.